jump into one or two questions, and then we can get some people up
Yep.
on stage. There is Alex. He's currently also within Spaces. He wants to know when will the Cake DeFi app lose his beta status?
We just discussed this today during a product update. Do you know the timeline? I don't know. I think it's not too long out anymore. We just wanted to be sure that everything was tested and pretty much all the bugs were gone, and then it's going to go into regular status. Do you know the date?
Maybe important for everybody. The app was safe to use since day one, so there was never an issue with safety or security or anything, but it was a little bit the user experience. There were some minor bugs, and the functionality was a little bit restricted. With the last version 1.5.0, it's already pretty much the same experience as the website. There's still some minor tweaks to be made, and I think the official launch will be within the next 14 days.
14 days. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's always, I also want to highlight something. Like our company now, there's 70 employees. We have some really experienced team leads. I, as the CEO, I'm also not like involved in everything down to the last detail. And yeah, sometimes I get questions on certain things where I'm like, wow, this is so detailed. I don't even know the answer to that. Because yeah, it's really I mean again, the team has really grown so much. Yeah, I think at the moment, if I look at my like what is my key, like I probably have, I would say, I mean, a couple of key priorities every quarter. Maybe that's also interesting for everyone listening in. Maybe if you're a business owner or you just want to kind of hear a bit on what's happening here. We don't share this publicly, but I only keep this within the team. I do a reflection. So the reflection that you see on a quarterly basis, right? I do the same thing internally, but I do it way more critical. And I really kind of pick things apart where we are delivering really well and things where we don't deliver well. And I'm very like very self-critical. And I have no issue pinpointing things where I really think we didn't do well. And obviously I love to praise ourselves if we do really well. And then by that point, I then pick out the key focus that I have until the next quarter. And I make this very clear. I set goals, so it's completely transparent. So, and then at the end of the quarter, so now at the end of September, everyone in the team will know what were the goals that I set for the company. And obviously a lot of these things are in my responsibility. Yes, they always kind of trickle down to various team members, but at the end, I take this up as a responsibility. And everyone kind of knows, are we winning or are we failing in some of those points? And again, I'm never someone that punishes people for not achieving certain goals, but I am always someone who, yeah, it's very critical if we don't really try hard or we go for it or we really kind of push hard for it. And so if I look at all kinds of kind of key responsibilities, and I think for the third quarter, I put down 8 for myself. And I just want to highlight a couple. Obviously, one that's really, really important was product, in a sense where it's all about obviously getting that freezer out and preparing everything for Q4 to offer decentralized stocks and commodities and precious metals on our platform. And so there was a lot of things to work with the team. All these things getting so cross-functional. You need to understand, we need to launch this, and that's obviously a huge advantage for us at Cake. We need to launch this in over 100 countries. So we need to pick out legal opinions, right? So suddenly we need to go out and say, okay, look, we need to work this out for various countries. We need to get all these legal opinions, because it's one thing that the blockchain does this, and the blockchain doesn't need a legal opinion. The blockchain can do whatever it wants, right? It's a decentralized community. But we as a company that's we're undergoing the process for the PSA license here in Singapore, we need to really make sure we're doing things right. And so especially if we offer a certain service to over 100 countries worldwide, we need to pick out really specific countries where we need to be sure that what we're offering is actually legally compliant. And so suddenly you have the compliance team there. Then you need business development, because at the same time, a lot of these things don't work by themselves anymore. Suddenly you need to have partnerships and you need to work with other partners. Then obviously you have the entire product side. Then you have marketing, communications, explaining a lot of these things. And then you actually need to do internal education, because just like how for many of you, decentralized tokenization, something completely new, Well, guess what? Out of 70 employees, maybe half of them haven't even heard about decentralized tokenization until we started with this. Simply because, I mean, everyone here is a human being just like anyone else. And some have a high interest in only Bitcoin, some have a high interest in DeFi, but they haven't heard much about decentralized tokenization. So suddenly you have all these parts kind of that you have to juggle those pieces together. And yeah, it's gotten really, really large. And so there was, I mean, obviously you need to prepare that. So that was a key focus for the entire quarter. The other one is stepping up the marketing game, working with more referrals, working with more affiliates, running an affiliate promotion. And we did, I think, a very attractive one with the Olympic campaign. And now there's going to be coming up more of those, right? So we're trying to really kind of theme those, and I think that's going to be a very exciting one. And so kind of working with the team and aligning that, I think that was a very key one. And then another one is the entire audit. That is a lot of work, right? Because it's a PCAOB audit. It's the audit that you have to undergo if you are a publicly traded company. Now, we are not a publicly traded company, but we're doing the same audit. And it's a lot of work. And we're doing this because we want to be sure that you, as our customers, you actually basically have the same transparency and the same insight as if we were a publicly traded company. And so, yeah, and these are just three of those key other areas. And there's a lot of others. A couple of things are hiring, right? Working on the hiring pipeline, making sure that even though our team grows, that our core values, the team principles stay solid. And so I'm telling you this on the one hand, if you're a business owner, I would really highly recommend that you kind of set those overarching goals for yourself and kind of outcomes and focus points. And I think that's key. But then on the other hand, I hope that also shows you how the team is growing, how everything is really kind of aligned in being outcome driven for us. I mean, because that's at the end what you as a customer feel. You as a customer don't feel if we're working super hard on something, but then there's no outcome. Actually, you as a customer, you probably don't even care if you work hard or not hard. What you care about is that you get new products, that the service is not down. And look, maybe also some of you are really new customers, but if you remember in Q2, especially beginning of Q2, we really struggled with performance issues on the website because we had such an insane access numbers of customers. I think there was not a single second of down in the entire quarter, unless it was planned, it was scheduled because we had to update our service. But there was nothing where we had maintenance, unless when we updated the service. And I mean, that was planned and scheduled. And this was also one of those things where we're like, okay, look, Q3, we need to step up the performance. And these are always those things. And so I want to point those out because at the end, it's all about the outcomes, not so much how hard you work on something. Because yeah, as a customer, you don't really care how hard the team works. You really care about having the right outcomes. And so, yeah, and maybe they're also a good time to say thanks to the entire team because they do work hard. And there's a lot of weekends where they have to work and late nights and long shifts. And I think that's, yeah, also super important.
There is maybe a question that follows up quite nicely. Flashdale wants to know on Twitter, where do you see Cake DeFi and where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I think these two are very much aligned. I think in 5 years, a key aspect here, I think at the moment, most people associate us with crypto and cash flow from crypto. I would really love that over the next 18 months, that scope really broadens. So if you're in Singapore and you ask someone in Singapore, people would say, Cake DeFi is like the Asian version of BlockFi. So if you don't know BlockFi, I'm pretty sure many of you are familiar, a large crypto lending company from the US. And so many people always say, it's the Asian version of BlockFi. And maybe that's how it all started. But what I would really love that over the next 18 months, that entire sentiment kind of shifts into, they're the Asian version of Robinhood. But then they actually learn more and more where it's not so much about only the trading side, but it's really about having access to various assets and then really kind of going cross-border. And I think that is a major one. And so over the next 18 months, I really would love to see that narrative shift, that narrative change, so that the platform really becomes what this vision is, this one stop for all your finances, where you get access to so many tools and so many asset classes. And so if you talk to me about the next 60 months, 5 years, It's really about scaling exactly that narrative and scaling that point. By next year, I hope that product as a product offering is pretty much solid. And then it really comes down to being able to offer algorithmic kind of suggestions or algorithmic kind of choices where you can come in and you can define your risk tolerance for various products or various services. And then the platform suggests various options in how you could diversify or how you could get access to various platforms and various cash flows. And so I think that would be really, really important over the next 60 months or 5 years. So let's say until the end of 2025 or 2026, whatever is those 5 years for you. Yeah, and then, I mean, I think a long-term dream, right, obviously has always been for us to compete with the big boys and compete with the large players. I think if you're an entrepreneur and you start a business and you really want to scale that business, yeah, you have basically three options in my opinion. Very first one is you really kind of treat this as a small, medium-sized business, which again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Actually, the exact opposite. I think these are some of the most important businesses in the world. They are the backbone of our economy. Most of those businesses, they're not there to being sold. They're not being there to go public. They're just there to bring food on the table for families and for a few employees. And I think that's absolutely essential. But then when you go from there and you look at typical tech companies, well, you mostly have two routes. You either scale this entire thing and you sell it to a competitor, or you sell it to someone that maybe sees a strategic advantage in you. And I definitely don't think that that is the route that I would love Cake to go. I mean, if someone in 5 years comes to us and offers us and a price that's just not able to decline, I mean, I wouldn't say that in 5 years I wouldn't be open in selling the business, but I don't think that is the favorite solution for u-zyn and myself and all the employees that have stock options in the company. But I think for us, it's just like for many entrepreneurs, the goal long term would be to see this company compete with the Facebooks in the world and the Apples in the world and the Googles in the world and obviously the Robinhoods in the world and the Coinbases in the world. I think that is the route I would love this company to go in the next 5 years. And I'm very, very confident that the product offering we have, which is a very, very, in my opinion, well set up offer. We're not an exchange, which always sounds a bit weird because you're like, yeah, so you're not an exchange. Correct. But you're forgetting what this means from a regulatory standpoint. Look at all the troubles that Binance has right now. A lot of these problems will actually come towards other exchanges as well. Binance has just been the most aggressive, and you will see that many, many other exchanges will get hit by the same issues, same problems. Non-exchanges, custodial wallets, completely different kind of ballgame. And so for us, we're a custodial wallet. We don't offer an exchange, but we do basically execute your orders and in our wallet. And totally different from a custodial standpoint, from a regulatory standpoint. And so, yeah, I think right now people really underestimate that a bit. For me, the stricter regulation becomes, especially for exchanges. And if you're asking me over the next 5 years, what are a couple of things that I foresee for the entire ecosystem? I definitely foresee two things. I see taxes coming to crypto. That will come, more and more taxes, simply because you see all the spending in the world that's happening. Governments will need to get that money back somehow, so they will start taxing assets, and they will specifically start taxing crypto, simply because there's so many people who are sitting on insane crypto gains, and so they're going to start taxing them. So I see the taxation, and the other thing is regulation. We see this all around the world. And who will they start with first? They will start with exchanges. Why? Because they are the easiest to regulate. They provide a lot of the onboarding and offboarding tools. And so, that's where I think our real sweet spot with Cake is going to be. We are in a very strict kind of ecosystem here in Singapore. MAS here is the regulator has very good oversight. They're in constant conversation with with its companies that are applying to go for the regulated route here with PSA, with the Payment Services Act. And they kick the companies out that don't fall into that scheme or that don't abide by the rules, as you've seen with Binance, for example. And so we have that, and I think that is a really solid one. And then you just always need to kind of keep an overview of the rest of the ecosystem. So yeah, that's kind of the entire overview that I see here. And so yeah, looking over the next 60 months, I really hope that we can play on a few kind of trends that I see, right? And I always try to explain this to people. Bet on the tide. Don't bet on the individual wave. It's impossible to predict the peak or the draft of a wave, but it's very, very easy to predict the tides. And so to me, the tides that I'm seeing over the next 5 years are taxation. I think it's very tricky or difficult to kind of work around that. But I think buy and hold many times is going to probably make it easier than actual trading. So that's to me the taxation part. Regulation part, I just think exchanges are going to suffer massively over the next 5 years. These kind of golden times that we have seen over the past 5 years, I mean, they're already far down, and most exchanges actually are not making any money anymore on the actual exchange part. They need so many secondary services to actually make money, and the transaction fees are such a race to the bottom that it's so difficult sometimes for them. But I think that is a really important one. And yeah, and then the other one is that customers want to have access, and they want to be in control of whatever they own. They want to have this interoperability. They don't want to go from an Apple stock into dollars, having to pay fees, and they go from dollars into Bitcoin and pay fees. They want to go from Apple into Bitcoin. They want to do those things directly and instantly and no fees. And I think that's where this entire DeFi space is going to be so dominant. And so these are the tides that I am betting on in the long term. Yeah, and I think any company that's kind of positioned well for that, I think is going to win. That doesn't mean that exchanges are all going to lose. I don't think that at all. I just think that exchanges will have to change a bit of their game. These kind of golden times where you just list as many kind of coins as possible and then you charge a lot of trading fees. I'm just not sure if that's going to be the business model going forward. I think that's just going to be a bit tricky. Yeah, so I think as a company, we're really well positioned in all that.
One of the most asked questions or the most requested feature or thing to come to Cake is, will Cake offer more lending or staking coins in the near-term future or long-term future?
And sure, I mean, you can drop us messages on which coins you would love to see. Obviously, for me, I would love to offer as many coins as possible. Before we go wide, right? Because that's basically going wide. We need to go deep. And deep just means we need to offer all points of DeFi. So we need to offer obviously the investing into the coin, which is we wouldn't like offer euro dollars into coins itself. We would use external partners for that because we don't want to be the exchange. But so that's what you want to offer. Then the next one is you want to offer staking. Mining is probably not something we want to get into, but staking, right? So that's the second aspect. Then the next one is the entire liquidity mining, decentralized exchanges. The next one is this entire concept of decentralized loans, which is coming up now in Q4. Then you want decentralized tokenization coming up Q4. Then you want these decentralized prediction markets, futures, options, and so on. That's not going to come up in Q4. That's probably going to come up next year. And then maybe at some point, decentralized reputation, but that's a different story. So you want to go deep there. Once you have the entire layers, then you can go wide. So then you start adding coin after coin after coin, and you just look and say, okay, which one has number one, which one has number two, number three, number four, number five, number six, and you just add those together. And because you have the entire infrastructure in place, it becomes such a plug and play system. If you go wide first, which is what most companies do, and then you try to go deep, you have this massive mess from a regulatory standpoint and from a compliance standpoint because you haven't checked all the tools. Then you need to start scratching left and right, add this, remove that. And that's just where it gets so incredibly messy. So we would love over the next, let's say, 3 to 6 months, have the entire depth and then go wide and then really go and say, okay, which of those platforms, which of those coins offer that as well? And obviously, if you have any suggestions or any kind of coins you would love to see, please send them in. We always love to look at coins and kind of have them a bit on the wait list. And then hopefully we can add as many coins as possible. At Cake, our goal is not to focus on a single coin. or a single blockchain. It should really be about being blockchain agnostic. At the end, in the long term, that's what's going to make the platform win.
Didi on Twitter wants to know if we have good lawyers when taking on the financial industry. This could come in handy. This is maybe a little bit what you already talked about.
Yeah, I mean, we have good in-house. I mean, we have good in-house, and we work with various law firms out externally here in Singapore, in the US, in Europe. Yeah, I think I think as good as it gets.
I think so too. And then there is a question from Fabian Eicher. He wants to know if you're planning to go public with Cake.
No plans. Planning implies a legal term, so I just want to be clear. But obviously, I would be lying if u-zyns or my dream, again, without using the term plan or without using the term having made plans. So just having a dream or wishing, obviously, that maybe at some point in the future we see those shares floating on a public market. Obviously, I think for any entrepreneur, that is a dream that they start a long-term business plan or a business idea with. And so sure, it would be awesome if looking back and you're like, wow, you made it all the way. You started from scratch and you go all the way. So of course, that would be a dream come true.
Maybe a small shout out at this point. We were not expecting for this spaces to be this big. Like we have almost 300 people in it, and the numbers are quite stable. This is great for our first time trying this. For now, we will try in a few minutes to get some of you here on stage to ask your questions. I see at the moment we have 3 people requesting to speak. Just give me a minute or half a minute to figure this out, and then I will.
Yeah, I see them. I mean, I think I can get them in. I think so. I'm not sure, but I can try.
Okay, let's try.
Sure. I'll try Andre first. Or someone just got dropped out, or you added someone. Let me add Andre. Andre, can you hear us?
Now he's
he's connecting.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hey, Andre. Yeah.
Warm greetings from Burgenland in Austria.
Greetings back.
I have a short question to Julian. Do you have any clue what the reason is that Nasdaq had to remove your interview from YouTube?
I have no clue. No, I didn't even know that. I don't know.
Okay, because I had no chance
to watch it. Maybe I said something inappropriate. I don't know.
Okay.
Because I normally, before all the interviews, I think I'm a nightmare for all the PR agencies. They always give me this script of an interview. Say this, don't say that, focus on that. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I just, whatever, talk. I don't know, maybe I said something that was not appropriate. I have no idea. I didn't even know that the video was taken down.
Okay. Do you have time for a second question?
Sure.
Okay. I'm really new to the Cake DeFi and DeFi game, and I'm already staking a few DeFi on Cake DeFi, and I'm wondering, because Cake managed the most of masternodes, and it's not seems to be so much decentralized to me.
And what's the question?
The question is, how do you think could make DeFi chain more decentralized, so that more people can host his own masternodes? Is there something planned like a pooling for staking?
Yeah, so from a company standpoint, I mean, so a couple of things that we do from a company standpoint. One was that, for example, we do charge a fee on the 5 or 10 year freezer, so that there's actually an incentive for people to do it outside our company. And I know this is a bit weird because from a company perspective, you would want to attract as much funds as possible. But we actually see this a bit more long term. For us, I think the ideal scenario would be that, I don't know, half of the funds would actually go off the platform, and it becomes so decentralized that there's so many services and tools used out there that actually the price, for example, doubles or triples because for us, from a revenue perspective, it's exactly the same thing. Whether we earn 1,000 DFI at $3 or 500 DFI at $6, at the end, it's the same amount of dollar amount, and pretty much 99% of our cost is in fiat. So that's absolutely the same. So I think that's the first thing. Actually, we try to really kind of balance, on the one hand, obviously attracting funds, but at the same time, making it fair and balanced for the entire ecosystem. I think that's the first one. The second one, if you look, and that's a very like blockchain specific question, but if you look at Daniel's tool that he made on the analytics for DeFi chain, you can actually see that Cake's share on the entire ecosystem is dropping every single day. And I don't know, there's like a calculation on when Cake's masternode is actually going to go under 50%, and it's not so far out anymore. So you see actually a lot of the masternodes are being rather spun up outside of Cake than inside. And so give it a little bit, and I think Cake is just going to be a minority of the entire ecosystem. I think it just takes a little bit. Yeah, that is probably my answer. To kind of counter here as well, if you look at most blockchains, and you can even pick Bitcoin, and I know all the Bitcoin maximalists are going to scream now, but who cares? Facts are facts. They don't care about the opinions. When China shut down the entire mining for Bitcoin, over 50% of the hash rate disappeared. And so that kind of shows how much hash rate is actually in China. So, and prior to that, many people were saying that and were saying, oh, look, all the mining is happening in China. And so many of the Bitcoin maximalists kind of fought against that and said, no, it's not true, it's not true. And suddenly we saw the facts. And then obviously a lot of the narrative was spun around and said, oh yeah, but now it's kind of diversifying, it's kind of distributing. And to me, the point here is it's all about decentralization is actually super inefficient. So if you think about it from a very conceptual standpoint, you would want to have complete centralization, but you would want to be able to trust that whoever is that party. And so you always need to ask yourself, in anything decentralized, understand that it's always about the question, can it be decentralized? And so imagine the following scenario. Imagine that Cake is not doing what it says it's doing. Could people withdraw all their funds and set up masternodes out there? Sure, they could, and they would. So that's the main question. The question is not so much how decentralized is a system right now, because actually a system where trust is not the main consideration will always get centralized. It does, because centralization is efficient. It saves cost. It's actually faster. It's easier to coordinate. It's more mobile. And so these are key aspects as a whole. And I'm not kind of directing that as a single blockchain. I'm just saying that as a whole. But the question is always, could the system, if the centralized party is cheating or loses all its trust, could the system completely decentralize? And that is always the more important question. And in Bitcoin, it could. And in DeFi chain, it could. And I think that is the really massive aspect. Because otherwise, if we just pick, let's pick Bitcoin, and we could pick any blockchain, right? But Bitcoin is such a famous example. You look at who actually submits most of pull requests for the code. It's actually Blockstream, right? It's the majority of pull requests. Who is supplying Lightning? Well, of course, there's 3 versions, but the majority is being used by Blockstream. You look at majority of the funds, how do they come in? With Tether. You look at Satoshi, he has like close to 10% of all the coins. But the point is this, you look at the hash rate, right? I mean, it used to be so much in China, right now it gets all mixed around. And at no point would anyone ever come down. Of course, you will have people who criticize that. I'm definitely not one of them. But it all comes down to one thing. Could it disperse? Could people go and say, look, we don't want like so much hash rate in China? Sure. Could people go and say, we're not using any of the code that Blockstream provides? Sure, could, right? And so these are all the main aspects. And so has nothing to do now specifically with any chain. It's just a general concept. I think this idea of decentralization really comes down to, could it? Because as long as there's trust in the system, any system will always centralize. And we see this if we look at governments, right? Let's kind of make this a bit broader. If you look at actually democracy is such an inefficient way to govern a country. Why? Because you always have counter opinions. And so now is the key part. Democracy is not so good because it is so efficient. It's actually so good because it's so safe, right? That is actually the real answer. And so the best and most efficient form would actually be a dictatorship. But it's also the most dangerous form, as we have seen over and over and over again in our world. And so that is why most governments have settled with democracy, even though they all know nothing will ever get done. And you look at some of the most efficient countries in the world, I mean, they don't necessarily have the cleanest form of democracy, but then many times actually just a matter of time until they go rogue. And here's now the trick. You can ask there, can people leave? And in most dictatorships, people can't leave. They are not allowed to go into other countries. And so that is the key part. Could you decentralize? And in a political system, you can't. But in a blockchain, if it is decentralized, you actually can. And that is a super, super important aspect when you talk about blockchains. I hope that answers a bit the question, even though I'm a bit long-winded.
Maybe to add a small thing there, there is an argument to be made that Cake offers a very, very competitive service. You were talking about staking pools, and this is actually what Cake does. Cake is a big staking pool, so lots of people with smaller amounts come together. Cake puts them into a masternode, and right now, you have two sides of the sword. You have these people, they say 15%, this is way too much. And then you have the other side of the sword, that's people from the DeFi chain community, people that run their own masternodes, and they say, Cake does too good of a job. They ask too little fees because too much people are using a centralized service to stake their coins instead of setting up their own masternode. So it's a difficult way to walk, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you can talk. I mean, for example, I mean, you have the same issue on Coinbase. I mean, Coinbase is the most important on-ramp into the crypto ecosystem from all the exchanges around the world. It's the most important. So you could also make an argument that says, isn't that a problem with Coinbase if they get shut down, if they have an issue with regulation? I mean, if Coinbase gets shut down by the SEC, I mean, that's a very unlikely scenario, but I just want to kind of make the point here. I mean, I promise you, crypto would crash so hard. Even though no one gets hacked, it's just that total uncertainty that Coinbase would have. It's the missing on-ramp. No other kind of on-ramp would have big enough pipes to kind of compensate for that, especially in the short run. Maybe over months afterwards, sure, but not in the short term. So just keep these things in mind. Yeah, I know that people always love to point such things out. Yeah, but I mean, it's for me always so interesting to see in the crypto ecosystem as a whole. Obviously, people really focus so much on decentralization. I 100% understand that because when trust breaks down, decentralization is what matters. But as long as trust is there, it's those centralized kind of access points that are actually providing the biggest value to the ecosystem. Like any maximalist out there for any coin will never have the same kind of impact, no matter how decentralized your blockchain is, as Coinbase has for the entire ecosystem. From all the from all the platforms out there, Coinbase onboarded the most customers, did probably most education for customers, and onboarded the most dollars into the ecosystem. And again, you can, to me, the craziest thing is go on Trustpilot and look at Coinbase's references. It's absolutely bonkers. I think you have 70% one-star reviews. It's just insane, right? And so you look at a platform that has millions of customers, right? Onboarded billions of dollars, is being trusted by the largest players in the ecosystem, and is doing that in the US and still gets these disastrous reviews. And that's just unbelievable. And it just shows a bit on what actually the average person, the average investor that doesn't think everything's through, what they actually value and what they don't value. And I see so many comments where people say, the crypto space would be a better space without Coinbase. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, yeah, right. The price would probably be 80% lower from where it is right now. I don't know how much you like that. And the average person out there would not be able to access the crypto space. So demand would dramatically sink down. So again, the question is, can you leave Coinbase? Can you escape it if Coinbase starts torturing you? That is the key question, right? And so that is really, really important when it comes to true decentralization. True decentralization doesn't mean that everything is decentralized. That would mean that we have either an anarchy or we have like communism, which is, if you look at the political spectrums left and right, it's actually curving in the back. And I don't know if you really want to have communism or anarchy. And again, you can look at the communistic countries, how it all turned out. I know at the moment you have a bit of this move towards some communism in the world. You can look at the real anarchy or anarchistic countries, some in Africa. Check them out. Look how well they're functioning, and ask yourself, is this really what you want to have as an ecosystem? No, you want to have an ecosystem that can come together, but then can disperse. And I think that's really important. I hope that kind of gives you a bit of insights into, we didn't cover the markets much right now. We could definitely do that next time. Maybe shoot us a message or give us some feedback how you kind of like that format a bit. Hopefully next time, maybe we have a few discussions, right? I have no issues in someone being on stage and pushing back and saying, look, I don't know, maybe that or maybe this. I would kind of love that, obviously, as long as this comes with being respectful, kind of having, I always love this, I call it the living room kind of style. If you do things in such a Twitter spaces just because you can't get punched in the face, that doesn't mean that you should be doing that. So I hope you kind of respect that and understand that. But then I would love to kind of do those more often. I was really impressed how many people we had in here. So I hope in this rough hour I was able to share a bit of what's happening at Cake, what's the vision here, obviously talk a bit about non-Cake and about the general kind of ideas. Drop us a message if you'd like to see this or hear this a bit more often. And then we'll take it from there. Definitely cool. My first Twitter Spaces. I've not done what was the other app called? What was that audio app called? Clubhouse. I didn't do a single Clubhouse thing either. So it's a total premiere here. Cool. Fabio, any famous parting words?
Bakers around the world, thank you very much for joining this Twitter Spaces, our first one. We definitely learned a few things and going to be prepared for the next one. We will announce it on Twitter. And as Julian said, if you have any questions, any feature requests, everything, you can let us know on Twitter. We're also very active on Telegram, and we really see and take notes. So if you have any requests, any features, any feedback at all, please let us know. And we will definitely do this again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.